Says I'm live. I assume that means I'm live. Hello, everyone. It's me. Same guy as it always is. Fire Guy Ryan. I'm here with my weekly stack of comic books. Although, this might be the smallest stack I have had personally for many a week. Our shop was missing most of our Marvel books this week. Mill Geek Comics, we got a lot of last week's missing Marvel books this week, and I assume we'll get this week's missing ones next week. So that sucks. At some point, it's all going to catch up, and I'm going to have an enormous, impossibly huge stack of comics. As it stands, this is what I have today. This is not that many for my standards. If you have watched one of these live streams before, I always measure this by the width of my ginormous orangutan head, and this stack of books usually significantly larger than this. Usually. Right now it's not. This is missing several Marvel comics. This is even missing 2 DC comics, unfortunately. One of which I was very excited to read, Swamp Thing number 11. Don't have that one. I'm missing Amazing Spider-Man this week. I'm missing Iron Fist. I'm missing Ghost Rider. I'm missing Dark Ages. And Hulk. I'm missing Hulk number 5 by Donny Cates and Ryan Otley, and I'm sure there's something else that I'm forgetting. So yeah, I have this very small stack, which I have already read most of. I just forgot. I've read all of the ones in this stack. However, this other stack that I had set aside, it's like I'm totally not prepared for the show or anything. These 3 I have not read yet, so I need to add them to the pile too. So it's a little bigger. We'll add 3. Let me try and shuffle them up so they're not all 3 in one lump, because the shuffle is the most important part. Everyone knows that. Okay. All right. So as always, this stack is going face down on the table here, and I'm going to randomly go through my entire list for the week one by one and let you know what I think. Since it is New Comic Book Day, I'm trying to be less spoilery with this show. I read a lot of this stuff before I go live, so I have the tendency to go a little too detailed with my thoughts on some of these comics. So I'll try and keep it general, maybe, or at least heavier based on what last month's issue was. And now I'm just rambling, so let's get to the first one. New Bern number 5. Okay, now we're talking. This is a cool book. I almost said this is a fun book. This is definitely not a fun comic. New Bern is about, actually, I should clarify, it is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Jacob Phillips, not Sean Phillips. New Bern is basically a detective for gangsters, I guess. That's the easiest way to put it. He solves gang-related crimes for the gangsters. He is not affiliated with the police anymore. He's an ex-detective who is using his talents for, I don't know, solve crimes, solve mysteries. I've compared this book to Scooby-Doo before, unfortunately, in the sense that like each issue has him and his partner finding a murder or a robbery or something that happened, and then they solve the crime by the end, usually with some sort of light twist. But it's good. I enjoy this comic, and this issue finds New Bern in prison, although I don't remember exactly what he did to end up there. He is in prison in this issue, and that gives it a sense of danger and excitement that I think this book was kind of missing before. He has this sort of, since every crime family in the city kind of relies on him to help them solve problems, he has this sort of like diplomatic immunity almost. So there's not a lot of real danger. There's not a lot of sense of danger to the rest of this book. But now that he is in prison, and as you just saw by that panel I showed you, he's getting punched in the face and things are happening to him. So I think this prison stuff, I don't know if this is going to last. I don't know if this is just a one-shot detour, but I enjoy it. I enjoy New Bern, but I don't think I know at our shop, at least at Mill Geek Comics, there's only a handful of people who are even subscribed to this book. I don't think it's very popular, which is unfortunate because I do love me some Chip Zdarsky comics. Almost American. I believe this is the finale. I I can't, and maybe this last issue really knocks it up, and really knocks it up. That might not be the right phrase. Really kicks it up, knocks it out of the park, blows away my expectations. But this is number 5. The first 4 were not my favorite. Um, the premise here was that it is about a couple, a married Russian couple who decide to defect to America and turn state evidence and become like American citizens and over all of the state secrets that they know about the Russian government. It's a true story. It's kind of boring. I was not the biggest fan of this comic, even though it looks like it would be very much my speed with a lot of like politics and intrigue and espionage kind of stuff. There's just not a lot of danger here because going in, because these two characters survived to tell the story, they're fine. Nothing's going to happen to them. No matter what happens to them along the way, they survive, I guess. Even though the stakes in this story are very tense and real because they are giving up a lot of sensitive secrets about a government that does not want those secrets to get out. So they very easily could have not survived this experience, but they did because this is a real story and it actually happened. Maybe it'll be better as a quick 1 through 5 binge read, but as it stands right now, this is one of the ones I have not read yet this week. Maybe number 5 is a step in the right direction, but considering how much I didn't like the first 4, I can probably safely say I did. Overall, that is a pass for me. It's unfortunate because it very much on paper is my thing. Next book, Animal Castle. This is another one that is my thing. I've been enjoying this comic all the way through. Hello, Ben Compton, by the way, in the chat. Hello. Animal Castle from Vault Comics is about a group of animals in a castle who are overseen. They are ruled by this bull named Silvio, who is basically a dictator and keeping all of the other animals in the castle under his hoof, if you will, not under his foot. But the story is over time, over the course of these 4 issues, we are seeing the seeds of a rebellion kind of brewing amongst all of the other animals living in the castle. And it's a very beautiful comic. The art is done by Felix Delep. Delep? I don't know how to pronounce it. This is translated. I believe Ablaze Comics does a lot of international translations. I think it's French. Yeah, it looks French, according to the credits at the beginning, anyway. My biggest complaint with this book is the size of the letters. It's a weird complaint. I think all things considered, if that's the biggest issue with this series, then you're in good shape. Hi, kitty. But the some of the dialogue in here can be really small and hard to read, and it changes too. That's the other frustrating part. Some panels are smaller than others, and it makes it frustrating. If it was all one size, that would be different. But again, that's my only complaint about Animal Castle, and I think it's really heating up now that this rebellion that the animals are kind of formulating is starting to pick up steam, and the stakes are high. Animal Castle's fun. Fun, again, is not the correct word because it's very dangerous and scary for these guys in particular, but I'm enjoying this book a lot. Do you want to come up here, kitty? Will that make you shut the hell up? Come here. Okay, yes, there you go. Okay, I'm going to just do this one now because it's here. This is a larger book than a normal comic, so it's no mystery. This is Batman 1 Dark Knight, issue number 2, written and illustrated by Jock. Who did this variant cover? Pope. Last name Pope. I can't remember the first name. I kind of wish I went with cover A. This is a really cool book about Batman transporting a prisoner from Arkham Asylum to Blackgate Prison, but this prisoner has electromagnetic powers, and through an accident, he accidentally causes a power outage in all of Gotham City, and he escapes the prisoner convoy, and now Batman has to protect himself and this prisoner from a lot of different gangs who are trying to take this dude back or take him out, or both, all of the above. There's a bunch of different bad organizations trying to attack both of them throughout this story, and Batman has to finish the transport operation. I'm not explaining it very well. I don't explain anything very well, apparently, but it's a really cool comic. Jock is a great artist, and it turns out he's a pretty good writer too. I was kind of nervous. He's not the only writer, or sorry, he's not the only illustrator right now who is also writing and illustrating a DC Black Label book. Actually, Cliff Chang is doing a Catwoman book right now, which is also really good, except it's taking forever to actually come out. What was the Batman book called again? This is Batman One Dark Knight. Knight with a K, because it's Batman, the Dark Knight. It's a really cool book. I wish I could show it to you, like the interiors, but it's square bound, and I don't want to open it that hard, and mess up the spine, because I'm a little conditioned snob. But it's a good book, especially if you really like Jock's artwork, like on the Batman Who Laughs miniseries and a bunch of other Scott Snyder Batman stuff that he has drawn before. He's a really cool artist, and I'm impressed at how much I'm enjoying his writing too. Steve, I'm looking at. I have not read it. Been working a lot. Oh, well, good. You should be working. The more you work, Steve, the quicker I will get to read your comic. I feel like I've been waiting for that forever, but it'll be good. I'm excited. Next book, DC versus Vampires, number 6. I have not gotten to this one yet either. I am looking forward to it very much, although this is a halfway point. Yeah, 6 out of 12. This is a halfway point of this story, and it is going on hiatus for a while after this. So I'm kind of in no hurry to read that one. It's unfortunate. If I had the time, I would very much like to read all 6 all at once at some point during this break. I'm not sure how long it's going to be on hiatus for, but DC versus Vampires should not work. But it's been actually weirdly fun this whole time. Excuse me. Yes, hi. It's a lot like Deceased in the sense that Deceased was a story about zombies in the DC universe, and this is about vampires. However, if you read Deceased, the comparison kind of makes itself, and it's hard to talk about one, for me anyway, without talking about the other. But Deceased stepped on the gas immediately, and this zombie plague happened, and everything was screwed. Like, immediately. Things were bad. And the fun part of that story was seeing how the characters in the DC universe adapted to this very abrupt, sudden, horrifying change in the status quo. But DC versus Vampires, you have vampires turning various characters in the DC universe one by one, kind of slowly in the background, behind the scenes. So you're really not sure who to trust, who's lying, who has been turned or not, because you can kind of hide it. So I've been enjoying it. It's being handled a lot better than I was prepared. I should have expected that, I guess. It's being written by James Tynion and Matthew Rosenberg, two of my favorite writers right now, actually. So I should not be surprised. I would like to open it and show some of the art, but I had not read that yet, so I don't want to spoil myself or you. So instead, let's go to this one. Okay, apparently I did not shuffle that well, because this is the third and final book in the stack that I have not read yet. Steve says, have you read all those books behind you? I'm working on it. I need to read Deadly Class. Full disclosure, these belong to my brother, but he doesn't take good care of books. So I'm storing them here, and I'll read them. I've read the first few issues of Deadly Class #1. It's a lot. It's cool, but it's a lot, and I would like to read that whole set. I have not finished Harrow County yet either. I have the 4th and final library edition coming, so I'm going to be going through the rest of Harrow County at some point when I get a chance. What else up here haven't I read? I have not read Criminal Volume 3 because somehow our shop, we got Volume 1 and Volume 3, but number 2 was just missed somehow. So I need to find out where Criminal Deluxe Volume 2 is. It's very frustrating to me to have it out of order. So once that's done, I would like to get that book. I'm trying to see what else is behind me up here. Other than that, I think I've read all this stuff. I've been getting the Reckless books behind me here. Somebody's borrowing Reckless Volume 1, so I have not read the second and third one yet. Those come out a little too fast. I'm having trouble keeping up. I'm getting they're like directly behind me here, but the Sin City Deluxe editions, you can see I have 3 of those hardcovers there. I have not read Sin City since college, but I love it. So I'm gonna get back into that once I get a few more of them. I have 2 out of the 3 deluxe Alan Moore Absolute Swamp Things. I've only read one of those. I'm still waiting to pick up the third and final one that just came out, at which point I will go back and read all 3. But I think other than that, I think I've read everything I have. I need more because I only have, this is half of the available space. Unfortunately, the rest of it is kind of off camera here. So once I fill up this whole bookshelf, that's a bucket list item. Yes, hi Kitty. She's angry. But yes, I have read most of the stuff behind me. My bookshelf full of novels that is no longer in this room, that's a different story. A lot of those were things I meant to read, but I never got around to, especially now that I'm just reading so many comics every week. How do you organize your books? My comics are just straight up A to Z, or Y, The Last Man is the last thing I have up here. Alphabetical by title. And then if I have multiple books in the same title, I go by time, I guess, volume number. So like I have the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run here in trades, and then the big absolute omnibus. But that's omnibus volume 2. Those are all out of order too. I got some more of those coming. It's a mess. But yes, alphabetical by title. My novels are alphabetical by author, but again, those aren't in the room anymore. Those are not in the picture. What's this one? This is Darth Vader 21. I have not read this yet, but I'm digging these Mandalorian covers that they've been doing for the past few months. What is the matter with you? Hi. Don't rub your face on power cords. That's not cool. You will hurt yourself. All right. Unfortunately, we're like halfway done with this pile, even though I've been stalling a little bit. We're a little bit less than half, but I've gotten rid of all the ones I have not read yet. And this, I think, is a week or 2 old. Some of these books are not from this week. Like the Star Wars book was last week's book that we got this week. This is another one. I think this is more than a week old, but this is Amazing Spider-Man 92.BEY. I didn't love it. I don't. This whole Beyond storyline that is about to end, or did end today. I just didn't get the final issue because our shop's missing all our Marvel stuff. I was okay with the Beyond run in like the first half, but it lingered a little too long. I think it might have been better if they had cut this whole thing in half or something and did 2 separate story arcs instead of one giant long one, because in retrospect, you can see that this whole Beyond plot line is just a short break in between 2 longer runs on the comic. So I can see why they did something like this in between. But I would have rather seen a couple of separate storylines instead of one long one, because it got a little convoluted and messy by the end. Again, that is without me having read number 93, which is the final chapter. So I don't know how it ends or wraps up exactly, but I think it'll be good, but passable, like getting a C+ in high school. You did it, you did the job, you passed, but no one's gonna pat you on the head or like remember it. Is that the Spider-Man copyright fight? Is that what happened in 93? I assume it's Ben Reilly and Peter Parker. Like based on the cover, at least, it looks like they're in a fight, like duking it out for the right to be Spider-Man or something. I don't know. they've been getting along this whole time, so I don't know why they would be beefing by the end of it, but whatever. I'm ready for it to be over, ready to get a clean slate with a new creative team and seeing where they go from here. Venom, Lethal Protector #1. This came out last week, but again, our shop did not get all of our books last week, so some things were delayed to this week. I did not like this comic. This is an extremely 90s book. I shouldn't be surprised, I guess, by that. But it's kind of cool to see Venom being treated in this more as a villain, as somebody who is going to scare people and eat their brains, and just be more kind of how he was originally intended to be, because he has been a little bit redeemed in recent decades. I guess they've made Venom like almost a hero, I guess, in some ways, like a Wolverine, kind of like a dark hero who will still do bad things, but he's a force for good. Whereas in this comic, it's gleefully old school vintage 90s Venom, which is kind of fun, I guess. In theory, I'm not the target audience for this. I much prefer modern storytelling sensibilities. This comic is very silly and very 90s, and I was a little bummed. I was a little bummed out, if I'm going to be honest. I think, again, it's not bad. I am not the target market for this. Yeah, that's about all I got to say about Venom. I don't want to say bad things. This Bill Sienkiewicz variant is a no-brainer. I think out of all the options we had for covers on this issue #1, this is easily the standout for me. I miss McFarlane's Venom. He was supposed to be Spider-Man's Joker. Yeah, you get that vibe in here. Like, he's definitely more malicious and I guess not Joker, Venom. I guess Venom is like talkative, and he speaks in the current era of Venom stuff, but it's not like, this is a different style of Venom. It's refreshing in the sense that we get back to what it was supposed to be in the original era that he was created in the early 90s. But I lump this in with Silver Surfer Rebirth, which is another book that came out today that I was not able to get. Those books are similar to me in my mind because they are 90s throwbacks. And if I had a nostalgic attachment to that era, I think I would be a happy camper. But I don't. I would much rather read modern stories about those two characters instead of this throwback. And I wonder if in 10 years we're going to get nostalgia reboots of comics from the 2000s, like getting some kind of Civil War callbacks or Avengers Disassembled stuff that I'll really be into, because that was my era. But the 90s are, I can't do it. I don't like the 90s in comics. I intentionally avoid all of that stuff, except for modern 90s. They figured out a way to get me, unfortunately. When he first came out, he was scaring the hell out of Spider-Man and his family. Yeah, see, that's exactly what I want. And Venom himself is bad in this story, but it's still kind of handled in like a silly 90s goofy way. The villains in here are all bug based and they have ridiculous powers, and I've never heard of any one of them, and it just feels very flimsy and inconsequential. I did not enjoy myself reading that issue. I like looking at the cover though. Next up, Something is Killing the Children 21. This book has finally returned. Issue #1s have a thing where they're good. They're really good, but I want #2 already. This is very much chapter 1 of a new story. Issue 15 of Something is Killing the Children was the conclusion of like the first chapter, I guess, of the present day Erica Slaughter storyline. And then we had a 5-issue flashback story arc. And then we had the House of Slaughter miniseries happening. So it's been a long time since we've had a modern day chapter of this story. And as such, this feels very fresh and new. But the problem is it's in issue #1, effectively. So the whole time I'm I'm enjoying it. It's a good issue. But by the time you get to the end and you finally get your first glimpse of Erica Slaughter and you finally get a hint of where they're going with this, it's over. And I actually had the exact same reaction when I watched Moon Knight. I watched the first episode of that before going live, and I had the same feeling. Like it's a really cool setup. I'm very much enjoying what they're telling me, but they save the good stuff for right at the end, and it makes you. It's a technique. It's a tactic, right? They put you on a cliffhanger to get you in for the next one, and that's how I feel with Something Is Killing the Children too. That's a very good way to start a story. So I can't complain. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm saying I want the next one already because this is not enough. I know there's another book in here that made me feel that way. Maybe it's this one. No, Radiant Black. This is number 13. Right? 13? Yes, 13. This is actually chapter 1 of a new story arc. Yes. And you can tell in here that they are making a strong effort to introduce some antagonists into this universe, because Radiant Black so far has spent a lot of time developing the other hero characters that are featured on this cover. And while they are all pretty cool, there has been a definite lack of a rogues gallery in this new superhero universe. And thankfully, that is starting to get addressed in this issue. However, one of the reasons I love this series so much is because it combines humor with superheroing, with great skill, because it's a very hard tightrope to walk, the balance between those two things and not going too far in one direction or the other. For example, you have this 4-panel sequence here where he is he's working with a local radio show in his hometown, and he's hawking different products, sponsorship products. Like one of them is just best local pizza that he likes in town. And over here you have like a Manscaped kind of razor product that he is hawking. Like what is this, burritos up here, and this one called Ziviz. Oh, it's a VPN service. So it's just him marketing stuff. And I found that very funny. It's a good book with a good sense of humor, but it's not afraid to step on the gas when it comes to superhero stuff. And I believe this is the villain that we are being introduced to in this issue. It's just a cool book. I really enjoy Radiant Black. And I was worried the last couple issues were focused so much on the other members of his kind of crew, the other people in this universe who have similar powers, and it started to feel very Power Rangers in a bad way. And I'm glad that we have, at least in this issue, we are starting to step away from that. Now the other kitty wants to come hang out. All right, we are down to the last four comics. Hi. And this one, Iron Man. Okay. I don't know any other way to say it, but I was very pleasantly surprised with this issue. This is issue number 18 of Iron Man, and I have spent pretty much this entire time constantly crapping on this comic and how directionless and how much it felt like it's been stalling this whole time. The entire storyline has been one giant plot so far. There hasn't been. It's issue 18, so a normal comic, this would be the end of like the third story arc for trades, right? Because there's about 6 issues in a trade, and you usually have a comic will tell a story in 6 issues and then move on to the next one. Iron Man has stuck with the same villain, the same conflict, the same group of side characters, the same everything for 18 issues now. But this one kind of takes a little break, and it is just Tony Stark and Patsy Walker, Hellcat, kind of having a very serious, heartfelt talk in the middle of like a wheat field somewhere. And I was not prepared for how introspective and like insightful this comic would be. It's really good. And the fact that I'm saying this about Iron Man right now is a little shocking because this comic is, if I've mentioned before several times how in my head I have like a mental ranking of my entire pull list, and Iron Man has been in the bottom, uh, somewhere in the bottom 5, maybe like the opposite of a top 5. Iron Man is one of my least favorite comics on my pull list. However, out of nowhere, the current issue, number 18, really good. This might even crack my list of 5 favorite comics for the month of March, which I will be recording sometime in the next few days because this is it. There are no new comic book days left in March, so I need to start putting my thoughts together for my next edited video on this channel. A little daunting. Those videos are a lot of work, but I like doing them. 3 books left. One of them is very thick, so I'm just going to pick that one next because that is Hulk Grand Design. Hi. I loved this. This book is so much fun. I don't know anything about the Hulk. I have read The Immortal Hulk from start to finish, and the 4 issues of Donny Cates' Hulk. And I think I read Planet Hulk once, like 10 years ago or whatever. So yeah, my Hulk knowledge is very limited. So I wanted to specifically pick this one up because I wanted to kind of learn about, the broad strokes of the Hulk's history. But I was not prepared for how silly and kind of fun this comic would be. It is very much a celebration of the Silver Age, and even down to the paper quality. It's printed on thicker paper to kind of give it that old school feel, and it's even yellowed in a sense. Like the borders are yellow, or not yellow, but they're off-white is probably the technical term. But this just goes through major events in the history of the Incredible Hulk. But it is it's weirdly funny. I don't know if that's just because a lot of it boils down to him smashing stuff and getting in fights with a bunch of different weird villains, but this works. This really worked for me, and I had a blast reading this, which I was prepared to suffer through it because I kind of gave up on X-Men Grand Design. I think there's only been 3 trades of that story. I have 3 of them anyway on Comixology, and I never got around to the third one because the first 2 really didn't grab me. They, at least as far as I'm remembering, they felt very educational almost, and dry and factual, like you're reading a Wikipedia page for the X-Men, and it wasn't very fun. Whereas this Hulk book, I'm having a blast. I very much enjoyed that. I had a very good time reading that, and I think that might even be my favorite book of the week, unless the new Darth Vader comes out of nowhere, because I haven't read that yet. Although that was last week, I think, so that doesn't count. So yeah, I'm pretty solid. Pretty sure this is going to end up being my pick of the week for this week. Not that I do a pick of the week kind of show, but it's my favorite. Last 2 books. I feel like I'm all alone here, but I don't like this comic. This is Step by Bloody Step from Image, Cy Spurrier and Matteo. Who draws this? Because that's really the most important part. Matthias Bergara does the artwork in here. Matthias? I can spell it. I can't pronounce it. But this is a book about a little girl being escorted by a giant robot across the land for some reason. The whole book is silent, which is a nice idea, but I can't follow it very well. And I feel like I'm on my own here because everybody else I've heard give an opinion on this book, they love it. And I think that I am just kind of I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it at all because I'm frustrated reading this book. It makes me really confused and a little irritated because I didn't realize how much I relied on the the flow of a conversation or obviously narration to help me understand exactly what's going on any given panel. But here you're just left to figure it out based on the art. And the art isn't necessarily as clear as it needs to be for me anyway. Art is very subjective, but for me, I had trouble kind of deciphering what was happening in some panels at various times, especially in action scenes. However, there have been, I'm going to show you one. I'll find one and show you one because there are a lot of 2-page spreads and environment shots in here that are gorgeous, that you don't really need to tell you a lot of what's happening. You see, in all of these shots, you see a path, and you have the giant robot footprints and a little girl footprints in the path. But these establishing shots showing the nature and the world of this book, those are really cool. The art in here is really good. It's just not good enough to do all of the lifting by itself, in my mind. In scenes where they're just walking or interacting with nature, I'm okay. But in scenes where there's a lot of fighting or action, it gets difficult for me to tell exactly what's happening, and I get irritated. Personal preference. I really wanted to like this book. I really do like Cy Spurrier. I'm loving The Rush right now, which is a book he's doing with Vault Comics. It's very spooky. Step by Bloody Step. Not my favorite. And I would be very relieved if somebody else told me this was not necessarily their thing, because all I have heard from anybody else is effusive praise for this series. And I was really hoping issue 2 would help me a lot, because I had this feeling after number 1 that I didn't love this book and I was nervous. And I had my fingers crossed that number 2, if I read them both back to back, I would have a better sense of what's happening. And I did get that feeling from here. But at the same time, I did not fall in love with this comic like I was hoping to 2 issues in. So it's unfortunate. Last book for the week, Rogue Sun number 2. This is a Radiant Black spin-off. I guess it's a tie-in to that same universe, but you don't really need to read. Radiant Black is not required reading to enjoy Rogue Sun at all. As far as I can tell, 2 issues in, there is no connective tissue whatsoever. It appears to be functioning very much as its own independent organism. This is a family portrait of a cover here. You have the main character. I can't remember his name. I should probably know his name by now. It's a short name for whatever that's worth. Dylan. That's not a short name at all. You have this kid Dylan, who is a bully. He is a jerk. We have several panels of him in issue 1, putting a kid in a locker and threatening him to, I'm not going to let you out of the locker until you let me copy your test tomorrow. Like, he's demonstrated as a jerk, and he's the main character of this book. So it's pretty cool to see that kind of non-traditional protagonist for a comic like this. But he's living at home with his mom. She's single. She split up from Dylan's father, who he's left them and married another woman, and they had 2 kids together, which is what's going on in this portrait. So you have Dylan here in the suit, his 2 half siblings, I think that's what you call it, and his stepmom, right? The other lady that his dad married. In issue 1, his dad dies, and they go to read his will, and it turns out that his dad was a superhero, and he had superpowers given to him by this gem, like an infinity stone kind of thing. And his father chose to pass this stone down to his son Dylan, who is again a giant jerk, and he now has to kind of grow up and accept the great power, great responsibility kind of stuff. And again, I had that same feeling with issue 1 of this, that it was a cool setup. It was a cool premise. I was very much on board. However, I wanted issue 2 because I loved all of the stuff we got in chapter 1 so much, but it wasn't enough to go all the way. And then the second story comes out here today, and we find out that he is seeing visions, I believe, of his father I'm assuming via the stone that gives him powers. And so he's got a little bit of it reminded me of how in the show Dexter, how he would always have visions of it was his father, I think, in that show, who's talking to him and giving him like advice. So I like that twist in here. It's a superhero book that takes place in New Orleans, in Louisiana, too, which is a nice touch. That's kind of a corner of the country that doesn't really get a lot of superhero content, but it's a cool little indie book. I definitely prefer Radiant Black. However, I am looking forward to future crossovers between those two storylines, because the one that we have already, we got a book called Supermassive that came out a couple of months ago at this point, and it was not my thing. I didn't care for it. I believe that took place before Dylan's father died. So I think the rogue son that we got in that story was his father and not the teenage Dylan. I need to go back and read that again, because I did not care for it, which was a disappointment, because I love Radiant Black and I was looking forward to Rogue Son at the time. Maybe now, with a little bit of hindsight, I will find something to appreciate in the Supermassive crossover. But yeah, that was my book. Sorry, that was my haul for the week. It was very light because, again, we're missing most of our Marvel comics at our shop and a bunch of DC. Or sorry, I'm missing 2 DC books. I did not get the War for Earth 3 finale, the little miniature crossover that's happening in DC right now. I'm waiting on one of those. And Swamp Thing number 11 also came out this week. I'm missing that, as well as Silver Surfer, Dark Ages, Hulk, SpiderMan, and some other stuff. Ghost Rider, Iron Fist. I'm missing quite a bit, actually, and especially Ghost Rider. I was really looking forward to reading that, because that was a gigantic surprise. I was not prepared to love Ghost Rider number 1 as much as I did. So I want to finish the last few books I have not read, and hopefully maybe like take one of that stuff. We'll see. There's always something else to read, and that's my advice to you. Read some comics and geek responsibly, I guess. And I guess those are the same thing. All right, everyone, and I'll see you here next Wednesday. I might actually be. The plan is for me to be on Comic Tom every Tuesday. We'll see how well that plan holds up once we get closer to next Tuesday. But if you didn't see me, I was on the show live yesterday with Tom. Go check that out if you haven't already. And you might see me there again next Tuesday if our schedule holds up, if our plan stays in place. If not, I'll be here Wednesday, and you can actually catch me on Friday on Comic Talk Live on Will the Comic Beast. I can't remember what his new YouTube channel is named, but if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see. I'll post about it beforehand. So yeah, I'm gonna go. I hope you guys have a good night and read comics.